What is up? What is up? What is up, people? Thank you for tuning back into You're the Vet, the show that showcases veterans who have gone through transition and have a story to tell to help others on the same road as they had once been progress in their lives, so they don't have to learn the hard way from all the BS that we've ever had to learn the hard way. So You're the Vet is a platform for veterans to come on and just share their experiences, and I'm so honored to have Mr. Andrew Pierce Esquire, a legislative executive assistant to the City Council of Edmonds, Washington, on the show today. Not only am I excited to have him on because I'm actually getting to have my first full-on adult conversation with him, but Andrew's also the first Navy veteran to come on the show, so I'm sure that anybody who's been listening to this and has only heard Marines on here is going to have a little smile on their face because a little change has happened. So beyond being a social servant, like I said, he served in the U.S. Navy, and we'll come to find out throughout his story that there was a specific moment in his military career where that light bulb came on, letting him know what he wanted to do, and that little fire kind of forced him almost to this life of humanitarianism that he's found himself in. And through the struggles and the sacrifices he and his family have had to make for him to get on to Capitol Hill where he is today, it's been a long road, and I can't say that he's anything but grateful for where he is today. And Andrew comes on this show with just a plethora of knowledge that you can only get by walking this line or having a mentor that's walked this line before you, guiding you through the dark. Once again, I'm so honored to have him on because I did not know where this conversation was going to go, and it went just to all the right places. We talk about growing up in the country and then kind of moving into the military. We talk about education system not being challenging enough and how that might need to be restructured later on. And we talk about the fact that when people decide to leave the service, they become shunned, and his experience with that. Andrew talks about the necessity to ask for help and to be genuine in all that you do, and really the creation of opportunity instead of waiting for something to fall in your lap. Most importantly, throughout the whole process, you can actually wrap up the whole conversation in 2 words, and that's process improvement. And he talks about that for a little bit, but when you think about the whole conversation, looking back on it now, it's all about process improvement, how to make yourself better, how to make your situation better, how to make your family life better, quality over quantity. I mean, just so much knowledge. It was a fun talk, and Andrew loves to talk, and he loves to tell the story of how he got to where he is today, and that's why he's one of the most fun guest that we've had on You're the Vet. And so I hope that you can pull from him as much as I did. Our conversation actually went for a long time, so I actually split the conversation into 2 parts. So you're going to hear part 1 today, and then I'll introduce part 2 next week. But I really hope that somebody gets to listen to this and their life just changes because the light bulb went on. You can reach Andrew anytime. His contact information is in the bio under the show, and he will give it to you later at the end of the show. But I hope that you enjoy this conversation because I sure as hell did. This is You're the Vet. So, Andrew, I'm honored to have you on You're the Vet because I've known you for so long. You're actually a very near and dear part of a near and dear friend of mine. But more importantly, you're a Navy veteran that has done some fantastic things and has now been recognized publicly from the new state position that you're holding. So is that all correct? You are in the state. You're working your way up, right?
Working my way up. It's a municipal job, so I'm working at a city level. but it's within the field that I really want to work at. It's policy development, doing policy analysis, but it really is a start. I graduated, you said we've known each other for a long time. I graduated from law school in 2012, and this is really my first entry-level job that I've had in the field that I want to be in. And part of that was due to, the recovery, and especially the field that I was in. It hit certain industries harder, and it hit certain geographic areas harder. And where I came out of law school, there wasn't a lot. So I took a job for a few years outside of this. So, yeah, this position is kind of my foot in the door where I want to be.
Yeah, scratching your way in. And that's, I mean, I know I'll get into it because that's one of the things that I admire about you is that, you're in your late 30s and a father of two now. Late 30s, I'm sorry. I'm aging you, right?
That's right. I'm almost there. I'm mid-30s. I classify myself as mid-30s.
Yeah, I mean, who wants to be in their late 30s? No offense.
5 months.
So, yeah, I was saying that you're in your 30s and you're a father of two, and you just really uprooted yourself from being you had your own home. We'll get to all that, but that's why I love the story, and I think that you have a lot to offer to other veterans who are transitioning or have already transitioned and they're finding the ways into places that they're a little bit lost or they need a little bit more guidance. And so that's why I tap into people who've gone through this and can give back. So let's talk about pre-Navy Andrew. Who's pre-Navy Andrew?
Pre-military Andrew. I was a carefree kind of kid, not focused on anything in the future. Like, really, I had no long-term plans, like, of joining the service, even though I actually joined up before I was 18. During my senior year, I turned 18 in January, but it was kind of hey, you're going to be done with high school after this. I hadn't really set anything up. Like I said, my grades weren't top. I don't even think I could have qualified to go to college right away. I had to start at community college, and even that at 18, I didn't even know anything about community college. And so really the military was kind of like an option for me. Not that it was my last option, but, I did my research and I looked into the other branches, and I had that kind of tinge that I knew. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I needed to get out of where I was and see something different to figure out what I wanted to do.
How did you get to the point where you kind of made the decision, I need to see something different? Because I asked that being that when you're from a small town and you haven't had a lot of traveling experiences, and being in the military, a lot of those guys never thought about leaving their security blanket.
I think that's right. I think a lot of guys in that go in the service who are in the same boat as me, and they don't think about what's going to happen after high school. A lot of guys go in from these rural towns, as many guys that go in from bigger cities, and it's just, I think that's a lot of the mindset on all of them. But I think the difference with me, knowing like, hey, I need some vehicle to propel me out of where I'm at now so I can figure out what I want to do, was actually travel. I was fortunate that, like I said, we moved from California. I still had family out there. So I would spend summers as a kid. I would spend entire summers with my family in like the Seattle area in Washington or in the Bay Area. So like I knew that there was something else out there beyond my hometown. It's just by the time I got finished with high school, I was like, oh man, my options are limited. How am I going to get out there? So I knew I needed something to get me out of my hometown. And I think looking back on it, I think in my mind I was always there. Like I never really, I think it always floated the idea of the service being what I did after high school. Uh-huh. I just never took anything in high school seriously. So I never had like plans for it until the very end of high school. Yeah. So that was pre-high school Andrew. I had like my fly fishing rod in the back of my truck, and I missed a record amount of days of school my senior year. I had to stand in front of the school board and plead not to like basically be expelled or have to come back to let me finish up. So yeah, that was pre-Navy Andrew.
Oh man, and you came full circle. I mean, because that's not post-Navy Andrew at all.
No, we were laughing. Me and my mom were laughing. So this is my mindset. And if you know me, I mean, can get it from this conversation. I'm all over the place. And when I was in grade school, they put me in special ed because I would not sit still or pay attention in class. And it was probably because just the shit they were putting on me had held no interest to me whatsoever. But it wasn't obviously because of cognitive ability. And I think that parlays into, we'll talk, I think we're going to pick up on that thread later. But yeah, that was a big part of it. It was just that's kind of always been a thread with me, especially in high school. I had the ability, but I didn't have the direction.
And maybe a sense of not being challenged as well, right?
I think that's part of it. I think our schools, I have problems with, how we teach, and not problems with how we teach, but coming to the understanding that children learn differently and are motivated and stimulated differently, and that we can't have the same playbook for every kid because it's going to lead kids who have awesome cognitive abilities to end up in special ed.
Yeah, 1,000%. And that's kind of a big belly button in social talks right now because I'm in my grad program using Voc Rehab, and I say all the time to some of my professors, if I had to pay for this education, I'd be pretty pissed off at this point in my life right now. So just because I don't feel it the same kind of way, I'm more of a doer, a visual learner, a hands-on guy. And I'm not getting any of that, and and I'm the only student in my program, so it's not a matter of that they're just drowned out by other grad students in my program. So I get that. I get the turn of not fitting the learning norm, and I think I had that same problem now that you said that, looking back at it. So because I was always getting letters written home, but I always had the grades, so...
Yeah, that was my mom told me she moved up here recently, so we've been hashing it up like crazy. And just this same story popped in my mind. My mom tells they would call her into my high school to like basically have a parent teacher conference about me sucking in school. And my teachers would be like, I don't get it. He doesn't turn in any homework, but he'll take the tests and get like a B+. And my mom was like, I don't know and I'd pull the ruse with my mom. I'd be like, oh, I don't have any homework. And I would leave all my books in my closet in the room. And then when I go to school, I'd be like, oh, I left my books at home. I was a terrible student.
What did that turn into a terrible non-NCO?
You know what? I was better with it. The thing, you know what? It depends on probably who you ask. I'm sure I had some chiefs who were like, this kid, they wanted to ring me up, I'm sure. But you know what? Here's a fun statistic from my Navy time. I went to DRB 6 times. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, here's the thing. I go to DRB 6 different times. It's a DRB Disciplinary Review Board. I stand in front of a bunch of chiefs and I get reamed out for something.
Yeah.
The first time I went, man, it wasn't my fault. And I got it was a dumb thing. But throughout the course of my 4 years, I went up 6 times because I really had little tolerance. And this was probably because I was young and stupid and 18 to 22 years old. You're kind of a feisty little fucker. I didn't put up with bullshit. Like, I'm not going to go stand and listen to the captain talk for whatever because it's irrelevant to me. Like, I'm like, whatever he has to say is not going to change my day to day here. So why do I have to spend an hour of my days standing there listening to him? And so, but they would catch me skating and then I'd have to go to like DRB and, so that 6 times, every time I went to DRB, it got dismissed because I always had I was the lowest ranking work center supervisor on the ship.
Yeah.
I was overqualified than any other E4 on the ship, like beyond. Like, I always had my work done to a high level, but I didn't conform well to just the hierarchy.
Yeah. And
someone telling me my job just because of your rank, like, I'm sorry, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I do know what I'm talking about. Just trust me, and like, it's going to work like that. So for the most part, like, depending on who you talk to in the Navy, I was a badass NCO. You talk to certain chiefs, they fucking hated my guts. Yeah, I had chiefs who loved me and looked out for me, and I had chiefs who sent me up to XOIs as soon as they had an excuse.
But that was something you brought in. I mean, that was kind of your personality even before you got in, so you just carried on, right?
That's true. You know, the older I got, if you can say you have any wisdom at that point, but I kind of I was confident. I knew I was smart. I graduated top of my class in my technical school at the Navy. I kind of started to really take things seriously. Like, I did take things seriously in the Navy. I was a good petty officer. I was, line captain for other shit. I was in all these other teams and volunteered and qualified for all this other crap. And it's just, I really had a problem just buying into the whole, you're an officer and I'm not. So therefore, like, I somehow have to defer to you on something I'm an expert in. Right. And those kind of little quirks, just like, let me handle my business and do what I do.
So was there ever a time that DRB ever bit you in the ass? Like, you get so many page 11s, you get non-rect or stay in the barracks for, a month or lose half month's pay. Like, did you ever suffer any of that?
Oh, yeah.
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 Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah. I think all 6 times I suffered punishment, but it wasn't like I never got knocked down in rank, and it never kept me from, like, they never pulled my positions away from me or anything, and it never went beyond that. It was kind of chastising, and then I got weekend liberty pulled, or I had a month of extra duty. Or the worst I suffered, and the dumbest thing I got for it, and this was really just kind of like, that having that attitude was, I was going to sit for my E5 test, and regardless if I had passed, I would have never seen a paycheck for it because I knew I was getting out.
Yeah.
And we were hitting Sydney, Australia on my last cruise, and I was just like, no, I'm not coming back to the ship to take the E5 test. I'm not going to do it. And they said, yes, you are going to do it, or you'll be AWOL. And so I didn't show up. And so when I came back, I went to DRB, and I always told them beforehand what I was going to do before I did it. And that was just kind of my young man's attitude. And I got put on restriction for like a month and a half to ship, and I couldn't go to Fiji or Hawaii the next 2 protocols. Like, I had to stay on the ship and do duty the whole time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I suffered for it. Yeah, for sure.
But your story is the same story that when we grow up in the military, you're the man of legends right now. So I'm not going on a ship. You're going to be AWOL. Okay, so what?
Yeah, I'll be AWOL.
Yeah.
No, the stories are legendary in my small circles. Yeah, for sure. The guys who were there with me, they'll tell them fondly but it was, like I said, what would have been, I could have showed up and just penciled in 100 answers in 30 minutes and left again. But it was more of like, no, I need to make a statement against the absurdity of this practice.
Yeah.
It did make sense for me to take the test. I'm not going to sacrifice something for a benign, asinine exercise. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And those kind of things is what got me in trouble.
So you actually, from beginning, because you're working with policy now, to tap into how it ties in, you saw the process where just because it had been working for so many years for somebody, it doesn't mean it's right. You've been seeing that as early as high school, elementary school, right?
Yeah.
It's just been something you've been in tune with.
And this is, I think I've been fortunate that I've had some of those skills. One of your questions I read was like, talk about skills that translated throughout. How do you know when you fit your skill into something? And that was one of those skills that I didn't put a name to it until very recently when I got a job at a big law firm in Seattle to kind of hold me over until I'm doing what I was doing now. And I did a training there, and it was all about process improvement. Sigma, you hear all these things like Sigma 6, process improvement training and program management. And vets will hear this a lot, especially coming out. I finally learned, put a name to it there, but my mind has kind of always been set there. And the whole goal of process improvement is to take any task you do and make it as efficient as possible by kind of studying it and breaking it down and figuring out where you can cut steps or how you can do things differently. And it's really, and wrapping your mind around that to solve any problem. We're talking about this in a law firm to figure out how we're going to build clients, to how we're going to do networking, to all those kind of things. We're trying to apply this in different areas, and it's called process improvement. And my mind has always kind of been focused on that wherever I've been, and I was finally able to put a name to it recently. And wherever I've been, whatever job I do, I've always kind of been the person who, after a while, be like, this can be done better. And you could be completely wrong. And a lot of the time I think, I can do this a different, better way. And I try it and completely fall on my ass. Like, nope, that wasn't the better way, the way we had it last time. But you know what? I still know this first way can be improved some. And having the willingness to try those things out and have them fail and then go back to the drawing board. Like, I've always had that mindset where I want to improve and make things as efficient and best as possible. Just to translate that into the veteran life, we're kind of groomed in that manner. In the Navy, or what I got from the Navy, but also the military, there was a set way to do things. You get these binders where all your maintenance is done step by step by step by step by step. Yep. But there is this wiggle room. Like, there wasn't so much oversight on me that I had to do my check that way, and no one would Actually, that's one of the things I got in trouble for. So yes, there is someone that checks to make sure. Exactly. But I would try to work that in there and be like, we can do this more efficiently. And there were some practices that got adopted just, in my work center, in my division, about the way we would do things and keep records and store things. So you can really apply it to everything. And when you're coming out, vets don't know that it's called, process management or project management. Yeah. I didn't have that as part of my resume coming out at all. Yeah. And I didn't know how valuable it was to going into any job. So we'll talk about more of that later. But yeah, it was to get back to the question. Yeah, my mind has always kind of been in that mindset, and then I kind of put a name to it later. Yeah, and it's crazy because I always knew I wanted to study psychology from young. I knew that psychology was my thing, why people do the things they do, how they come to the conclusions or the processes that kind of guide them through life. And that's where this whole podcast comes from anyway. But as I'm in my grad program or my bachelor, I'm hearing these theories and models. I'm like, oh, that's another word for common sense, or it's just a scientific model that is something that I've known for so long, So yeah, when you put these names to something that you've been doing for so long, it turns into realness or something that's tangible. It's crazy. I know the mindset that you're speaking of right now. That's why I brought that up. Okay, what did you do while you were in? I was basically weapons guy. I was always in the weapons division. Specifically, I was a torpedoman's mate. They don't even have those anymore. They're merged with another rating, and they changed the name of it. So, well, that's good because I get a lot off the book. People always tap into me and they're like, "How does this tie into what I did?" Because I was an infantryman, or because me in the Marine Corps, I was a radar technician. So when I got out, I started working with radar. It made sense. But you didn't get out and say, "I need to go maintain torpedo systems." And that was an option. A lot, like you said, a lot of guys do that. I mean, I could have went to Raytheon or Bath Ironworks and been those civilians that come on the ship and, maintain your torpedo systems for you when you do overhauls. And a lot of guys did that, fire controlmen, there's a lot of systems, so they really value that. But I found out, what I did say, the military did show me what I wanted to do the rest of my life, but it just came out of left field. It wasn't really something that you could be like, oh, my military service really, what I did in the military led to my future career. No, but my experiences I had in the military led to my future career. Yeah. And even though those skills that you think, oh, I was a torpedoman's mate, how does that transfer into the civilian world, and especially what I did? And for a long time, it was hard for me to translate how my service was beneficial to what I was doing. And it really took a lot of thought and reflection, and also edification, and just talking to professionals. That's a big one, and you learn that going through life. But talking to people who know how to do this stuff, how my military skills did translate to what I was doing. When we're in the service, we're taught from the minute you're in, and this, they're training you to be a leader. Mm-hmm. And it's because within 4 years, if you re-enlist, you are going to be a leader. and after 4 years, you're going to be beating the guys coming out of boot after you're an E5. And so getting that training from the get-go is invaluable throughout, because you take that with you into every job you go. You go in with the mindset like, not only do I have to learn my job, I got to learn the next guy up's job too. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of service guys do that. Every guy I've worked with, or every guy or gal, I say guy, I've worked with plenty of ladies, service member ladies, who have that same mentality too. And they're working not only on their stuff, but you're getting qualled so you can be E6, and that translate over. And so there's a lot of skills you learn, not only leadership, but like I said, how to keep and manage processes, constantly record keeping everything.
Yeah. It's funny because in the job I was in, I had been doing the technical side, but at the same time, I knew I wanted to get into management. And so I was putting myself out there learning other people's jobs. And then I was being reprimanded by civilian counterparts for doing so, basically telling me to stay in my lane. Not just like you're saying in the military, you have to know the next rank up.
Right.
Dress for the job you want, that kind of mindset. But when I got into the civilian world, they put that leash on me. It was very different. Nobody wanted me to learn above where I was, which essentially got me to where I'm at today. So it was a blessing in disguise. So, but speaking of learning processes and then transferring them out and getting out, was that your choice?
Yeah, definitely. I made up that decision. Like I said, I had an experience about halfway through my enlistment where I knew I was out and I knew I was going to go on to do, it wasn't set in stone, but this was definitely kind of floating around my mind. What I'm doing now, setting out and getting my education in the field that I chose. And then we went, and this is one of your questions you hit on that you noticed in an interview where I brought up that I had experiences outside the United States that kind of led me down this path. And what it was, we went into East Timor just to kind of run some aid. There had been they had voted to secede from Indonesia. They wanted to be independent, and they voted to be independent. And Indonesia invaded that small nation and basically just started killing everyone who voted for independence. And so a NATO-led force, I think it was led by Australia, but there were some Americans and some other countries in there, went in there, stopped the violence. This was in 2002. So in 2003, we went in there as on our way to the Middle East. On our way back from my second deployment. We stopped in this nation, and we're kind of doing support nation rebuilding efforts. And we went on this little island for about 5-6 days, and we volunteered. We helped bring in food aid, medicine, stuff like that. We helped do some construction work on basically an orphanage that was left. We were there. The place we were at was basically an orphan camp for all the kids who were left without parents after the violence. Mm-hmm. And, when you see that at 21, you start to reckon, you have to start to reckon with those things that you never, like I said, you take for granted as an American, because we have pretty peaceful, modernity as the exemplar. We have a really peaceful process here with our government, and that kind of thing, that just seeing the effects of that kind of political violence really just kind of set me up. And I always kind of had a patriotic bone in my body, and you grow up, you did it too, you grow up in hearing the glorification of America, and you love it, and as I should. There's no one that's more enamored with our system of government than me. Yeah. I just get pretty fired up when I see perversions of it. So that really sparked my interest to be like, okay, I just figured out where I want to spend my life serving, and it's not in the military. Yeah. I knew that I wanted to spend a life of public service, and I think that's why the military was always kind of floating in my mind.
So did you make that decision at that point, or did that kind of that was just kind of a spark that lit this fire that caught on, and then later on you found something else out and it just kind of blew up out of there? Or was it a progressive mindset, or was it a direct, I know it right now mindset?
No, you hit on it. It wasn't a eureka moment. Having that experience, we stayed there for 6 days. And when you're in the midst of that, your senses are focused on your surroundings. I'm taking in everything. I'm looking at these 60 or so kids and trying to picture, why they're there. And you just sit there and run it, these imaginary scenarios in your head of how their parents died and why their parents died. And, just reckoning with that for the next month that I took that away from me and going, just mulling that over my head. And what I did from there is I had that kind of thought wow, I never experienced anything like that before. We don't go through, start thinking about our history and just mulling these things over in my head. And what I did is I just started reading. I just started reading books kind of about our government and our history and the history of governments around the world and war and politics, and that it was a slow amalgamation of basically the next year and a half of 2 years of thought and study and research that I figured out okay, that's it. I got to get out now. And then it was I was short. I was already under a year. I told all my higher ups that I wasn't going to re-enlist, that I was getting out. And so, yeah, it wasn't like a aha moment. Shit. To be honest, oh, sorry. Can you curse on?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
All right.
I'm sure we've already hit our curse limit, if there had been one. So.
All right. Yeah, right. That I'm so unconscious of it, but that's the first one I noticed.
You and me both.
I didn't even really know how to pursue what I had come to think I wanted to pursue after I even got out. Like I said, college was such a foreign concept to me where I grew up and in my family, that when I got out, I almost missed the deadline to register for school because I got a job right away. I got 2 jobs right away, actually, and I started living with Sarah. I was already living with Sarah at the time, but I got 2 jobs, and then someone I had met by happenstance at the gym, at the job I got at the gym, was talking to me about, just meeting, and we were chit-chatting, and, I'm telling her, I think I want to go to school to study this. And she's like, well, it just so happens that I'm a counselor at this community college over here in San Diego. Oh, really? Yeah. Well, you should actually get on it. If you apply now, you might get in for the spring semester. And I was like, oh, okay, what do I have to do? I had no clue. None of that.
Yeah. And
I didn't get any of that. It's not like when we did our transition school, you do that transition school where it's 3 days of
the sample tap.
Yeah, set you up for whatever. Why wouldn't you have a college counselor in there telling you how to register for college and shit like that? So those kind of things I kind of stumbled around at first, trying to figure out how I was going to do what I was going to do. But as soon as I got into school, community college, I knew I had to start there, but knowing how to apply and when does classes start, that was just foreign to me. Not that I couldn't have found out, I did, obviously. But it's just, and I think a lot of guys are in our situation, or in my situation. They come from a small town, that same mentality. You don't really have to leave here. I mean, most of the people I graduated high school with never left. You don't know about these things, and you're kind of at a deficit. I think a lot of veterans, when they get out and they make that transition, that is a bigger deficit for them. So what helped me once I got into school, and what I helps guys coming out, and even guys, I think this would help guys who were in 12 years and got out, or in 18 and are starting school up again. Mm-hmm. The Veterans Resource Center on campus is probably one of the best resources for us.
Say again, you cut out the...
Oh, you're Vets Resource Center on college campuses.
Yep.
They're key. I mean, you go in there, they're going to tell you all your counseling, where to go get help. Because, now I'm at where I'm at, and you look, oh, Andrew has degrees from these schools, and he's got multiple degrees, and now it's this and that. Man, I had to learn how to write a proper sentence and do a paragraph correct when I first started out. Not that I couldn't do it, but you don't know that stuff. Yeah. You know what you don't know, man. And finding people That's the thing. That's it. That sums it up. You don't know what you don't know. Like, you don't even know what questions to ask. So surrounding yourself with those people, professionals from different areas, and relying on them and just asking them help. Like, what do I do? Ask them that. What do I do? And they'll help build you that roadmap to find out what you need to do to reach your end goal. Because my end goal was clear. I want to spend a life helping as many people as I can. And I feel I can do that through the political process. How do I get there?
Yeah.
We go rely on the counselors and the career professionals and stay up their butt, man. That's what they're paid for.
So there's a moment that I kind of want to tap back into. You made this decision, and this had never occurred to me until I had a conversation with the gentleman probably about 2 months ago. But you made a decision to get out. I did not make a decision to get out. I was forced out, and I wanted to be a career Marine. However, this gentleman had told me when I made the decision to get out, I had been treated like I had a dick on my forehead. Like, nobody wanted to talk to me. Everybody was shying away from me. They put me into an S shop far away. He was just saying that he had been shunned from the rest of the unit because he was no longer, I guess, a team player. Did you experience that at all?
Yeah, man. I got a great getting out story. So like I said, about 8 months left. That's when I knew, and I went and told everybody I wasn't realistic, because that's when they started talking to me about it, and I was called into my Master Chief's office, which is like my gunny, and they start talking to you about re-enlisting and stuff, and I'm like, no, I think I'm done, and like, I had to come back and sit with my Master Chief like 2-3 different times and have a conversation about getting out. And like, some pretty like nasty things were said in those things, like pretty disparaging kind of like, discouraging types of things were said to me in those meetings with a Master Chief. And I'm like, what is it to you? You got hundreds of new guys coming in every day. I saw them at boot camp. What do you care if I leave, But, there's you understand the economics of it. It's a real incentive to keep people. But it did change. So this was kind of funny. I get back, I make that announcement. I'm getting out. I'm short. I'm going to do my time. I'm not re-enlisting. I'm out of here. I go through this, and for the next month, I go through these, talking to my chiefs and talking to different other, E6s and stuff, telling me about what a great career it is, move, and all this stuff. And they really did. And then once they see that you're like, no, I'm good. Yeah, you really are kind of like, okay, there's no reason to carry on with you anymore.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're still friends. We just spent the last 4 years doing the same thing together. Like, that's not going to change. But they really do kind of like, okay, like, you're kind of cut off. You're not in the gang anymore. You're going to leave us. And I think that it's almost justified, not somewhat, like, maybe not from the higher ups, but I can see like your closer guys like, oh man, they feel like betrayed a little bit maybe. And I think people who are careers and you tell them like, no, this isn't for me. I think some of them take it personally, like you're dissing what they've decided to do for a life.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I think there is some of that animosity builds. And the same thing happened to me. I accidentally broke my leg by just a weird freak accident. So I ended up at Balboa for like a week. When I came back to the ship, they had thrown out all my stuff, including my dress uniforms, all my medals. Everything was gone. And I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, that was all my shit. You didn't just throw it in a sea bag for me at least and throw it in the locker? Like, they just got rid of me. Yeah. And it like, I was like, I wasn't gone. I was at the hospital for a month. Like, I didn't die or anything. And it kind of, I lost all of that stuff I wanted to keep as memorabilia. And I know I could replace, I've just been lazy about it. But, like, there is that mentality that it happens.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that, some guys probably might not experience it. Some guys maybe experience even worse than I did. Yeah. But I had such a hard time when I came back from the hospital trying to finish up my enlistment with my ship. You're supposed to go through this whole process, this out process, that my ship shunned me so bad from getting out, and the people in the higher command shunned me so bad. I had to go to RSO in a different base, get checked in like I was getting new orders there, and then get processed out there. And I didn't get out of the Navy for 2 months late. They had to back pay me that entire time. And I was working in civilian jobs. I told her, like, my paychecks quit. I'm not going to keep coming to base. I went and got jobs. And like, it was a huge process. They had to, like, basically extend me for 2 months and then back pay me so they could properly get me out of the Navy. Yeah. That's how bad I was shunted.
So, I mean, I'm learning that a ton of people have gone through something similar. And it's something that I was in the air wing. So I guess it never got that bad. I did see people kind of write people off. I can see a lot of the hurt, like, dude, you're just going to give up what we had. We were a tag team kind of thing. I saw a lot of that, but I never saw any of as bad as it got with you. But I have heard a lot of it now, especially since it was introduced to me last month or two. But that's crazy. So now you have this sour taste in your mouth. You've gone through the 4 years. You've done some amazing things. You traveled. You created bonds, and you have this new matureness on you, but now you have this new salty taste in your mouth for the people who are just kind of kicking to the side, like you haven't done anything for the United States for the last 4 years. So how'd you even, like, deal with that? How'd you even approach that mentally? How'd you deal with it externally?
Yeah, you know what? I had a big problem growing up being angry. I had a lot of anger issues growing up, and I was quick to scrap. Probably that comes from my background. I grew up pretty humble means, and there were some pretty rough patches there with parents and stuff. So, you know, you carry some of that with you into, you know, like, you know, you're a psych professional. You understand that kind of thing that can affect people. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I did because of that, because I recognized that myself, while I was in the Navy, I went and sought counseling, like a la Anton Fisher. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I got a counselor in the Navy to, like, help me with some of that. Like, man, I got anger issues. Like, I get mad quick, and I react quick to people, and, you know, it culminated. Man, I had a buddy of mine. I felt terrible about this, but, you know, you're on a ship for a while, close quarters, you start getting cabin fever. We were down in Berlin one time messing around, and a buddy of mine walked up and gave me the little, you know, nut slap game, you know, where you use the back of your hand.
Quote
and
game.
Yeah, like straight cocked him in the jaw, like knocked him out. And, like, from there, I was like, man, he was my friend. I've done that to him 100 times. And I was like, I can't do that. Yeah. And there was obviously there was other issues before that, but that was kind of like, man, I can't just be hauling off and hitting a friend because I didn't want him to touch me at that moment. And so I went and sought a counselor, and that I did counseling for like 8 straight months with that person. And it really helped me come up with ways to, like, manage stress, you know, just different kind of tools. I started meditating. Meditation helps a lot with stress, and I think meditation is great. And like I said, I think that harkens back to, like, reach out to you might feel out of your comfort zone. You might think, man, I don't need counseling. That's not for me. I don't need yoga, whatever it is, man, give it a try. Don't be closed-minded to things. You never know how something's going to benefit you. And you know what? You might not get anything out of it, but if you're not going to be hurt for trying, go seek some of those resources. And I'll tell you what, man, getting some psychological counseling was probably one of the best things I did for myself.
Yeah.
And it opened me later in life to be open to it, to do it with my wife for marriage counseling, to do it for other things. And so, you know, like I said, seek help from other people. That's important. That's a lesson I've learned going through all this, is, like, seek help from people, and you never know, you know, how something might help. I think getting that professional counseling would really help me deal with a lot of the other stressors I took on, because, you know, who knows, I get in the stress of middle of school, and I've got a paper due and finals are in a couple weeks, and I'm freaking out. Like, knowing how to deal with that stress is going to help you reach your goals at the end. And it's one of the most important things, because I guarantee you, whatever goal you set, if you set a professional, personal goal for yourself that you got to work at, you're going to have setbacks, you're going to have failures, and you're going to have a lot of fucking hard work. And that's going to take its toll on you mentally and physically. And you got to know how to approach those things. So yeah, dealing with the stress of it. And you know, I know we kind of got off on a tangent. You asked me how I dealt with the stress of kind of being shunted and stuff. I was kind of at the end of my counseling when all that stuff happened. So I kind of just took the mindset of it. You're like, you know what? This isn't going to affect me long term. I used some of those tools I found in counseling to kind of like, you know, get through those moments where I wanted to be mad at somebody and watch out for the acting the way they were. You know, I had a Master Chief tell me that if I got out of the Navy that I would fail and I would have to rejoin the military. I'm like, who says that to someone?
I'll touch into that soon. That's kind of a new. I have this new tangent of hate for some of the shit that's been said to us while we were in. But yeah, so you learn some of these techniques from counseling. How many techniques did you have to go through before you found the one?
I'm still learning.
Yeah,
it's never ending because you know what, you like I said, you try something, it's not going to work for you. You can't give up. You can't say, "Oh, this is useless. I'm hopeless." You just got to go out. There's something else out there.
There's something else out there. Yeah, that's right.
So, like I said, I found, you know, I did, you know, all these different kinds of exercises, and you know, everything from getting out my physical aggression, doing PT, or you know, boxing, or you know, doing martial arts, which I've done. That helps, you know, and then. You know, but like to answer your question, before I settled on meditation, I probably had tried it and quit it like 2 or 3 different times.
Yeah. That mindset that you're saying is like practice, give it a shot, because you don't know. You have no idea what's going to work for you, and what works for you may not work for the next, and what works for the next may not ever work for you, and it might sound silly. So, no, sincerely appreciate that piece of knowledge because it's important. And a lot of veterans have come out and found how important it is for them to feel whole again. But speaking about feeling whole, can you just kind of like touch on what does it feel like before and after for somebody who is kind of on the fence? Do you get this holistic feeling? Do you just feel at ease? Or, well, what does it do for you that it could help somebody else?
Yeah, a meditation, you know, when you go through the process of learning how to do it correctly, and then you go through the practicing how to do it correctly, and then when you finally do it correctly, yeah, it can be physically relieving. Of course, it can melt away stress. And the way it does that, you know, if you go in to do any kind of research on meditation, it kind of realigns your cognition and kind of slows things down for your brain so that basically just all the input and stimulus that could lead you into worrying or stress about a certain topic, it kind of helps put things into perspective. And it does that by just letting your mind slow down for a minute and letting things kind of wash away so that your brain isn't bombarded by all of the stressors that you can have in your day or your life or anything you're working on. And at first, when you get into meditation, when you first do it a couple of times and you start getting into the groove of it and you feel like, okay, you feel a lot less stressed out. You feel a little more loose. Physically, you can feel it. What you start noticing is if you continue to practice it and do it over time, it almost becomes like a maintenance thing, like hitting the gym every couple of days. Mm-hmm. Like it just helps keep you in that groove, and you do it. You realize, okay, I can do it in a moment where I need it to get me through something, or I can do it as part of a routine that helps me maintain. Yeah. And so that kind of aspect of it has been great. Like, yeah, I do it in the moment to help me get through some tough times if I need it at that moment. And then there are times where I just do it to like give myself a habit, a good habit that is good for me mentally, good for you physically. There's a lot of good studies and benefits of meditation. I recommend it to people. I first learned about it actually in martial arts. The kind of martial arts I did is a very spiritual one. So we do meditating at the end, and that kind of got me into it, first using it and then talking about it with a counselor and getting back into it. He gave me resources to, learn how to do it. Cause it is it's something you do. You know, people think of meditation and they think of, you know, a monk sitting there quiet in their room. Like, there's many different forms of meditation you can do, and it's just a way to kind of exercise your cognition and your brain and you know, all those things that create, you know, mental illness and create stress and anxieties and worry, and those things have a physical effect. That's just a way to kind of clear that stuff out of there. Think of it like bad cholesterol. And when you go and you hit the gym, you pump all that bad cholesterol out of your veins so that your arteries don't get clogged. Well, it's just meditation is that for the brain.
For the brain, yeah, that's right. I'm just enthralled into this conversation. I might have to split this into two, but that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. So,
and I started smoking weed. That helps.
Hey, so we're wrapping up part one of this two-parter, and I hope that you're having just as much enjoyment listening to this as I had making it. So the conversation is fantastic, and I think we left off with the perfect cliffhanger for getting into the conversation next week. So this is You're the Vet. I hope that you're going to turn back in next week to listen to the rest of Mr. Andrew Pierce Esquire. And tap back in to hear just the plethora of knowledge that he's got. I mean, so far it's been fantastic, and it gets even better. So again, this is You're the Vet, and I hope you have a wonderful week.